You're listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. Join us as we explore new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. And now here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
We are innately powerful. Deep within us lives a fire, a light that is uniquely our own, that longs to shine out into the world. But sometimes life gets in the way of our light. We are deeply conditioned to surrender our light, to fall into place, and do the things we think we have to do to fit in, fulfill our obligations, take our adult place in the world. When we give up our fire, it doesn't go away. It certainly can feel like it's gone out, but in reality, the embers still glow, waiting for us to rekindle that unique inner light that is us. We feel it as discomfort or depression, even physical pain, all signals that our soul sends us to remind us to tend to our inner fire. Sometimes we feel like we're drowning in a life we didn't choose, that the circumstances of our obligations take over and we have no choice but to compromise and give in. But the warrior within us reminds us of our power. We have the power to disassemble a life that is out of alignment. We have the power to burn away all that no longer serves us, and we have within us a warrior who knows that our real power does not stem from destruction, but from our capacity to align with the truth of who we really are. This is the path of the awakened warrior. And when we wake up to the power of this path, we can take our right place in the evolution of the world. Hi, and welcome to Quantum Conversations. I'm here today with inspirational speaker, teacher, and best-selling author Heatherash Amara. Heatherash is a leader in mindfulness and empowerment. She's the author of the best-selling book, The Warrior Goddess Trading, Become the Woman You Are Meant to Be, and the new release, Warrior Goddess Way, Claiming the Woman You Are Destined to Be, and, of course, her new book coming up called Awaken Your Inner Fire. The heart of Heatherash's teaching stems from her long Toltec apprenticeship and teaching partnership with Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements. Over the past 15 years, she's taught workshops and apprenticeships and trained teachers. She travels the world, and if you have the privilege of being on her Facebook page, you'll see pictures of her in some amazing places with women, and she helps women integrate the feminine wisdom of the ancients into their modern lives. Heatherash has sold over 1,000 copies of her books, and her books have been translated into 15 different languages. Welcome, Heatherash. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Karen. It's great to be here with you.
And it's a really interesting time to be a woman, I think, especially I think in the Western world right now. So in the last year, especially, we've had a lot of interesting empowerment movements, I think, for women, and lots of really interesting dialogues around feminism and the sacred feminine. But I want to talk to you about that today. But before we do that, I really want to ask you this question, because I think this is a question that we don't talk a lot about as women. And the question I have for you is, what do you think is the biggest wound that women carry? And when I talk about wound, I'm not talking just about personal stuff. Like, what is the biggest wound that's keeping us from fully stepping into the feminine power?
Great question. I think the biggest wound is the way we abandon ourselves. We've really trained ourselves as women to put our attention outside, to caretake everyone else, to try and please, to keep ourselves small. And the places we abandon ourselves through comparison, through judgment, through feeling victimized by our circumstances, through blame and shame.
So what do you think women need to do to heal this? I mean, is this something that has to come from within them and to begin sort of this healing movement, or is there something going on in our society that we need to shift?
I feel like it's both. We're in a big paradigm shift right now, both internally and externally. And the way I see it is that for women, it hasn't been very long since we've had a lot of external freedom, especially in the West. So it was really only about 100 years ago that we got the right to vote. And so it's pretty new that women have the external freedom, and we've started to really take it for granted. And while we have the right to choose who we want to partner with and what job we want to have, I've noticed we don't have as many internal freedoms. And that internal freedom is what I'm curious about helping women to step into, and also for us as a society to move towards, to really honor women's capacity and the way women do leadership, which I feel like is different than the paradigm that we're in now, and what gifts women have to bring forward that are really necessary at this huge time of change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just want to clarify for a minute. When you say internal freedoms, what exactly do you mean by that?
The freedom to really have compassion for ourselves, not abandon ourselves, be in a great relationship with ourselves. So many of us are chained to criticism, comparison, and a lot of self-worth issues. We still are also very tied to the past. We're chained to the past of who we've been. And so that's the internal freedom that I'm looking at, is how do we release the ways that we're still dragging the past with us, and what I call disaster mind, the places that we're going into the past and looking at what we did wrong or worrying about the future, so that we can really step into what are our gifts in this moment. What is it that we're bringing forward from a place of fullness rather than a place of emptiness that so many of us are struggling with?
So it's an interesting year. I mean, I think a lot of women, at least in America, and I think even globally, there's sort of seemingly a collective backlash against feminism, let's call it that. We've had the Women's March in America. We've had I think, big dialogues that are going on now about sex and sexuality, sexual harassment, rape culture, slut shaming. I mean, all these vocabulary words I learned from my millennial daughters, and I have to go look it up. What does this mean?
Yes.
And I think there is. It's interesting because I watch my daughters. I think they're kind of barometers, and really, I have 8 children, and 6 of them are daughters. And my daughters, I think, express the full spectrum of femininity. I've got, hippie granola daughters. I've got angry feminist daughters. I've got anti-fascist protesting daughters. I've got daughters that fight for gender rights. I mean, they run the gamut. But one of the things that I think I see with them universally is this sense of, it doesn't matter what we do. We've been fighting, our mothers have been fighting, our grandmothers have been fighting, and we're still in the same place. And now we've taken this big slide backwards. And they're angry. They're really, a couple of them are really, really angry. Talk to me a little bit about feminism and the sacred feminism, and how are those two the same? Are they different? What is sacred feminism? What is the feminist movement? And how does that all play out together? What do you think's going on right now?
Yeah, so much is going on right now. What I see is that there's a new wave of feminism that's coming, and as you said, there's a sense of frustration, I think, for a lot of women, both millennials and baby boomers and everybody in between, of this sense of like, how is it we're still here? Mm-hmm. That we have put so much energy, and women have come so far in so many ways, and yet when we look at what we're still dealing with, it feels daunting. It feels like, how is this possible in one of the most developed nations in the world, that there's still so much disparity and so much violence against women, and discrimination and unconscious bias that's happening. And so what I see is that we really need to be working on 2 levels. That there's the one level of feminism of just the very simple, basic, women and men are equal. That's all feminism means. And that we continue to be activists in whatever way feels best for us. And there's a lot of different ways to step into activism, and that we want to do that in a way that's sustainable. And how I found to do that is by connecting back to the divine feminine, to this idea of the sacred feminine, and linking it with our spiritual path, or our path of connecting to something larger than us. You know, I know when I was marching for everything and really, really active in the political movement, there was a moment I realized, okay, wait a minute, I'm angry, all my friends are angry, and nothing is changing. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started walking a spiritual path and really getting curious about what else is there out there for us. And when I discovered women's spirituality, which is really earth-based, connective circles, learning to work with the cycles of the season and with the cycles of our lives, and really deeply connecting to the earth, so that we recognize we're part of something larger, and that there's a larger cycle we're in right now. And I found that's helped me become much more sustainable, and the people that I work with, because we need to have a way to be nurtured. And when we connect with the sacred feminine, recognizing we're sacred, and then connecting with the sacred in the world, and finding our place within the cycles, then we have more capacity to stay with the big change that we're in the middle of, and just know we're in for the long haul. And we may not see it our lifetime. And that's frustrating, but that doesn't mean we should stop. We need to keep going.
So what would you tell, again, going back to my daughters, you know, because I worry about them. I have one that literally, like, if anybody who has a dissenting opinion speaks publicly, she and her girlfriends go and they're ready to punch people, literally. They talk about punching fascists in the face. What would you tell a young woman who is tapping into her power from that place? Is that healthy? Is there a different way for her to channel her energy? I mean, as a mom, I'm like a little freaked out about this. So
yeah, and there's definitely a phase that people that are oppressed go through. You know, women and people of color and all the peoples that have been oppressed. What happens is that there's a phase that we go through that I call empowered victim, where we realize we're not victims, we don't want to be victims any longer, and so then we start blaming and being frustrated and angry on the outside. And hopefully it's a phase. It's an important phase, though, because we need to feel that sense of power again, and anger feels powerful. I don't feel like it's sustainable over time. It's definitely not much fun to live in that place, but it is energy. And so to support young women right now that are in that phase of feeling fiery, to help them to use the fire without the bitterness. Mm-hmm. Because what they're doing is, and this is what I would point out, is you're eating the toxin yourself. You're actually keeping the whole system going, because there's poison. And anytime that you have anger that's not being channeled really healthily, and what I mean by that is, like, you have the anger because something's wrong, and you take action, and the anger dissipates because now you're in action, versus being pissed off. That's like slow poison. Mm-hmm. And that keeps the same dynamic going. And so to teach them skills around how to hold their energy in a new way, so that they're holding their power, and that they're super confident and clear in the actions that they take, and they're able to then let go and come back to themselves, and come back to a still place inside of themselves.
I love that. Ready to begin that dialogue slowly.
Yeah, and it's a slow dialogue, because it's very easy for them to turn that frustration towards you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've experienced that. So it's that gentle drip of there's another way. Mm-hmm. Yes. And to honor where they are in their process.
So I want to stir things up a little bit, because I want to add one other part of this dialogue. You know, I recently was on Facebook, and we have the Facebook Live thing now, and there was this guy on Facebook Live talking about women's empowerment. And I was like, I don't want some dude telling me about women's empowerment. And I sort of went to the angry place too. It was like, this feels like mansplaining to me. Don't
Yes.
tell me how to be empowered. But, half of the people on the planet are men. And I would certainly say that if we look at the emerging definition of gender, which seems to be less and less rigid in the way that we have thought about gender before, that it makes sense that certainly I would say as an entrepreneur myself, I certainly have a lot of masculine traits and probably to a certain degree I'm more comfortable in some ways with masculine energy than feminine energy. And I would imagine that there are men who, also, carry more feminine energy and masculine energy. Do we eventually drop this whole gender label completely? And what about men in this movement towards the sacred feminine? What is their role, and how do we move it all together with the guys so that we're not polarizing ourselves, which I think is a big problem in general, men and women. And how do we bring that masculine energy into balance with the feminine too?
It's a great question. And it's so true that there's so much more wonderful gender fluidity now, that we're really moving out of the binary system that we've held to be true, which has never been true. But now there's a lot more exploration and fluidity around gender. And that's why I really love using the term warrior goddess, because for me, those two qualities, and we can call them feminine and masculine, but I even like getting away from that because there's so much confusion around, what it means to be feminine and what it means to be masculine. And so by using more, different words, so warrior goddess, each of us has warrior energy, each of us has goddess energy. And I believe men, it's the same way, and that we're learning to find what's the right balance for us. So for some women, we present as much more warrior-oriented. We're more focused, we're clear, we're like 100% I'm in. And for some women, we're more goddess-oriented, where we have more openness, receptivity, creativity. There's more of a sense of play and joy, we can say. And so to find where we are in the spectrum, to let go of any shells we've taken on, because sometimes, for example, people that are a lot more warrior-oriented naturally end up taking on goddess qualities because that was what was expected of them, or vice versa. Women that are more goddessy take on more warrior qualities because that's what is needed at work, let's say, and then they forget that's not actually who they are. So to let go of the shells that we've taken on, to find out what's our authentic expression, and then to support men and women to come back in relationship with the divine feminine. We're very out of balance right now with this concept of God as masculine. And I truly believe God is not masculine or feminine, and that we need to begin to open up to this idea of the sacred feminine, of the mother, of the daughter, and that we're really recognizing the importance of realigning ourselves with that sacred essence that's much more immanent in the earth, that is immanent in ourselves. It's not something outside of ourselves, but that all of us, I feel like right now, we're all like little kids that have lost our mom, and we're out running around in the big world trying to figure out how to get things done, and we're freaked out. And so this place of reconnecting with the sacred feminine is reconnecting with that sacred mama who can say, we've got this. I'm here. And what happens is our whole nervous system calms down, and we know that we're being guided. We start to listen more deeply. And that's, our ancestors knew, I believe, the importance of the sacred feminine. And there were, cultures for thousands and thousands of years that had no war, that were deeply connected to the sacred feminine and to the goddess. And what they did with their time was created art and raised good families. And so that's what I would love to see us come back to.
I agree.
Let's do more art.
Let's have better families.
Yes.
And what, I think that it's so vital right now when we think about the challenges that we're facing, when we look at the issues, say, just around the issues of sustainability, that I think it takes the feminine wisdom of let's share what we have so that everyone has enough. But we've had a lot of conversations in the last couple of interviews about what's up on the planet right now, and several of our guests have talked about, we're in a cycle where we are moving towards feminine consciousness, out of masculine consciousness, or moving from material consciousness, very Newtonian physics-based linear concrete thinking, to more quantum thinking, to engaging more deeply in the realm of possibility and creating not just from sheer effort, but also creating from that place of sensuality and experience. What do you think is up on the planet right now?
I really agree that we're going through a shift in consciousness, and we can really look at, if we look at bigger picture history, how much more access we have to different spiritual traditions, to tools, how much people are bringing spiritual life in a lot of different ways and bringing it to everything that they do. So it's a really rich and amazing time right now that we're in. We have so many teachers and books and videos and online, like there's just this plethora, which is so wonderful. And that people's consciousness is starting to shift, and we need to have it shift from individual to community. It's not sustainable for us to continue to focus on the individual. What am I going to get? Because we're doing so at the detriment to the planet that we live on, at the detriment to our relations. And, it makes me think of a story. There was a woman anthropologist who did a study. She wanted to know the importance of grandmothers. And really quickly, shortening the study, but she had a theory about why grandmothers were important. She went to a tribe, weighed and measured everybody, and her theory was incorrect. And her theory at the time was that grandmothers help give extra nutrition and support to their grandchildren. So she went back and looked at all the data and thought about it and redid a study, found a different tribe, did all the study, and what she found is her second theory was correct, which is that grandmothers look at the big picture of the community and they feed who needs to be fed. So they're looking at the health of the whole, and that's what we're shifting to. We have to shift towards. If we don't, I believe that there's going to be dire, dire consequences, and the earth will shake things up in such a way that we have to come back into relationship with her. So hopefully we will do it consciously rather than unconsciously, as we are heading right now.
So you feel like we're really at a crossroads. We have a choice for how we're going to evolve. We're either going to, we're going to evolve regardless.
We're going to evolve either way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're evolving either way. Yeah.
We can crawl there or fly there. It's up to us, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what would you say is the most important thing that individual people can do right now, particularly if they're feeling, say, powerless or angry or scared? What can they do to bring themselves back into balance so that they can facilitate a more peaceful way of going through this change?
To recognize the importance of getting really centered within ourselves and connecting more to our heart and to the earth rather than to our mind. And to do that, bringing our attention more and more to being part of something larger than ourselves and connecting to that through meditation, through spiritual practices, through being out in nature. Because what happens when we start clearing out the noise of our old thoughts and agreements and beliefs, and the way that right now we're really in a pattern of going towards fear and scarcity and negativity, and to start to shift ourselves, that we're going deep inside of ourselves to anchor into depth. So I think that it's easy to get caught up on the crust, and we really need to go towards our own depth, clearing out the old emotions and the old beliefs and agreements that don't serve us, that we've been carrying from our ancestors, from the people, the peers, from our culture, clearing that out so that we're available for inspiration. We're available for insights and information. And when we do that, we are so much more effective in everything we do. And so sometimes people get frustrated of like, I don't have time to do that. It's like, we don't have time not to.
Absolutely.
We really don't have time not to.
So you have a new book coming out called Awaken Your Inner Fire. Tell us just a little bit about what your new book is about.
It's focused on energy and how each of us, we think of ourselves as physical bodies, but we're really pure energy. And so it's about how to manage, maintain, support our energy, how to own our energy and to know the difference between our energy and other people's energy, how to clear out the thoughts that aren't ours or that are from the past, and especially how to connect to our true work. So here's again, difference between crust and depth. And I wrote this book when I had really started living my dream. Like, I had a center in California, I'd written a book, my life was great, and it was completely unmanageable. I was busy, I was overwhelmed, I was really stressed out, and I was like, something's wrong. And I went on the road for a year and just let go of everything and started looking at the agreements that I had around time and busyness and started to unravel all of that work, and it's ongoing. But what I discovered is that for each of us, we want to begin to move towards what I call our true work. So we sometimes think, oh, my career is my true work, or I haven't found my purpose, and so I'm not living my true work yet, that it's something outside of us. But really, our true work is an internal feeling sense that we would do through everything we do, whether that's in your career or whether that's picking up dog poo in the backyard, that you can be bringing your true work through everything. So the external doesn't matter so much. It's the internal and the expression through us. So it's a beautiful, dynamic book. Lots of different pieces around mind, emotions, physical, and energetic body.
Well, and what I love so much about your work is it is very dynamic. You know, it's not just sit here and read this theory. You've got all kinds of really powerful ways for people to look inside of themselves and get clarity about who they really are. So thank you for that. So if you want to connect more with Heatherash, her website is heatherashamara.com. And her books, Warrior Goddess Training, Warrior Goddess Way, and her new book, Awaken Your Inner Fire, are all available on major online bookstores. And you can pre-order Awaken Your Inner Fire on Amazon. You've got workbooks too, right?
Yes, there is also the Warrior Goddess Companion Workbook, which has even more exercises.
Exactly. So, and if you get a chance, when you go visit her website, heatherashamara.com, check out her programs. She does some amazing programs for women to help them reconnect with the warrior and the goddess. So I'm Karen Curry Parker. This is Quantum Conversations. Thank you, Heatherash Amara, so much for joining us. I am so grateful for the work that you do, and thank you for giving me permission to drip content to my daughter.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much, Karen.
Sometimes our own inner struggle with ourselves creates the illusion that there's something outside of ourselves that we need to fight or conquer. We polarize ourselves. We think it's them or that versus us. The more disconnected we feel from our own inner being, the more we feel compelled to fight. It's natural. Your soul is begging you to be expressed in the world, and if you don't understand the language of your soul, it's easy to think that something is fighting with you, against you, but it's really all you. There is tremendous power and liberation. We win when we see that all conflict is rooted within ourselves. When we reclaim our identity as warriors and powerful creators of our own lives and our own purpose, we give ourselves permission to tend to the inner fire of our being. The world needs us all to take a nice long look in the mirror and find those places within ourselves where we are othering each other in an attempt to control our own inner restlessness. The world needs us to integrate the fire of our souls into our reality. The world needs people who are powerfully and deeply alive with the fire within. Compromise and settling, turning down our light, only causes depletion, lack, despair, and even overcompensation and fighting. Isn't it time you fight for your own light? Isn't it time you reclaim the power of your soul and feed the fire of your vitality and purpose. Fight for yourself first. Then you'll be ready to fight for what's right in the world. Would you like to discover what your soul is trying to tell you? Discover the blueprint of your soul and the map for your life. Please visit the Quantum Conversations Facebook page where you can get your free human design chart and report. While you're there, leave us feedback and let us know who else you might like to have a quantum conversation with. And in the meantime, I celebrate you discovering the joy of fighting for yourself. You are so worthy of living the life you are designed to live. Do it for yourself and do it for the world.
Thanks for listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. For more information, visit joyfulmission.com.